So happy when someone remembers to record. Thank you so much.
Mm.
Well, Wilda, you have the special light today.
Oh yeah, I'm in my kitchen
Oh,
with
kitchen
my
light.
parrots. Can you see it?
Oh yeah. Do they talk?
Yeah. Look, she's just screaming. Hi, how are you? Can you hear it?
No, but I think it's Zoom has probably got it.
Yeah.
It's,
Her name is Abelinda.
Linda. Sweet. Sweet. Well, hi, Leah. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Well, shall we get started with the bell? So we have a welcoming bell here to an invitation to ground, to release, to sink in, or to sit up, whatever it is that you feel like you need. So happy to have you all with us. We're going to start out with a poem, and want to invite you all to listen to the poem in whatever way you would like to. I'm trying to find it on my computer. I had it all set up, ready to go. And then, hold on. That's funny. Iván, do you want to share it from your computer? I had, oh, here it is. No, here it is. Oh, I found it.
You got it? Okay.
Found it. Sorry. Oh, how to get lost on your own computer. It's kind of funny to even imagine that. So, well, actually, we have it shared in the chat as well. We will just go with that for right now. And after the poem, we're going to have a check-in. We'll do a little circle check-in. And the question is going to be, is there anything in the poem, any word or particular group of words that calls out to you right now or spoke to you right now? And if there's anything you want to share around that, that will be our first check-in question. So, yeah, welcome to module 3. This one is about circle and holding space in community, which we've been doing in the first 2 modules, but today we're going to talk explicitly about it. So this poem from Alexa Toronto, I think Toronto's, really spoke to me when I was thinking about one aspect of holding space in community. So multiple. When we get quiet enough, by Alexa Toronto. When we get quiet enough for long enough, we remember to recognize something in our external world is to invoke that quality within the inner. To see is to call forth, to embody, to exude. The world acts as a mirror, an external teacher reminding us sweetly of who we really are. When we get quiet enough for long enough, we can hear the whispers of what is right, of what is true. Most importantly, Which way is home? Let's unlearn time and time again. Move from knowing to feeling, from doing to being, staying quiet enough, just long enough to bask in our own awareness and simmer in the essence of our soul.
I'll read a second time. When we get quiet enough, by Alexa Toronto. When we get quiet enough for long enough, remember to recognize something in our external world is to invoke that quality within the inner, to cease to call for, to embody, to exude. The world acts as a mirror, an external teacher, reminding us sweetly of who we really are. When we get quiet enough for long enough, we can hear the whispers of what is right and what is true. And most importantly, which way is home. Let's unlearn time and time again. Move from knowing to feeling, from doing to being, staying quiet enough, just long enough to bask in our own awareness and simmer in the essence of our soul.
Thanks, Iván, and thanks, everyone. So the invitation is out there. Maybe just maybe a little bit of where are you joining us from today? Was something about where you were joining us from? And then is there anything in the poem that spoke to you? Or is there anything else that you'd like to share as we're getting started in this circle today? And we're a small group, so we can just do popcorn. Whoever would like to speak can unmute and we can probably see. And if two people start speaking at once, that's okay. Somebody will step back and someone will step forward. But let's see how that goes just in terms of like popcorn volunteering. I'll pass the talking piece to the center and anyone can pick up.
Well, hello everyone. I am Darcy and I am in Nicaragua. I'm happy to be here today. I am taking the talking piece, and one part that caught my attention and is the part where it says the world acts as a mirror, an external teacher reminding us sweetly of who we really are. And I think this, I got identified with this part because today I had a very difficult day in terms of the platform that I use to teach. So I did some payments and suddenly they cut the service. So I had to postpone all my classes. I spent like 3 hours talking to the support service and I didn't get any support or solution. So I was very frustrated. And at the same time, when I read this, where it says, reminding us sweetly of who we really are, I just realized that even though that I was feeling so upset and my body was reacting, I was sweating when I was talking to the support group, I was still very compassionate with the person I was talking to, with the multiple people I talked today, because I talked like with 3 or 4 people from Zoom. And I was very upset, like very mad. And I had to breathe several times and then go back to the conversation. And at the same time, like anxious because the chat closes if you take time to respond. I was like, I don't want to react. I just want to pause and then respond. So this is the world, and the people that I was contacting is the external world. And I was compassionate and I am thankful for that. So I see myself, and I want to recognize that in myself, that even though that I still feel uncomfortable, I want to thank myself for being compassionate towards others. I put the talking piece in the center now.
At the talking piece. I love this poem, and I particularly loved we can hear the whispers of what is right, of what is true, and most importantly, which way is home. I found that really soothing, to remember that there's always a way home. It's beautiful. I return the talking piece.
Pick up the talking piece very gently. I'm on Common Berry country in Yungamar Nation on the east coast of Australia. So we're in the lovely, what we call winter in this part of Australia, but this part of the world where it's incredibly mild and glorious, clear skies. And it's great to be alive. What jumped out at me both times the poem was read was, let's unlearn time and time again. And I find that as I've stepped into this third of life, that it's a constant unlearning. And particularly with spending time with two young grandchildren, I'm actually unlearning my style of parenting and learning a different way of being. And I can't learn that different way of being unless I unlearn. So yeah, that's really those two lines, let's unlearn time and time again. Thank you.
Okay, I find meaningful the expression of we can hear the whispers of what is right and what is true. Sometimes we are confused. Right now, for example, I have to take a decision. And then being quiet, really, it's a great opportunity to see what is right and what is true. And thank you for the invitation of being quiet enough to hear what is correct, because at the end of everything, we know that everything is inside of us. So we're looking for answers and suggestions and advices, but at the end, everything is inside. So it's a great reminder for me in this moment. Thank you, Mary, for the invitation too.
Hi, everyone. I'm Paola, joining from Guatemala City, and I'm grateful to be here today with all of you. Something that stands out for me from the poem, well, the whole poem is just really beautiful. But the part that stood out to me was when we get quiet enough for long enough. I feel that's a challenge in our busy lives, or maybe we're trying not to be so busy, but still there are things to do, and carving out that space to get quiet enough for long enough to actually listen to what is true. It can be a challenge, but it's a beautiful reminder of how important it is to do that, because it is when we get quiet enough for long enough that we can listen to the whispers of what is right, of what is true, which way is home, and unlearn things and see the world as a mirror. So thank you for that beautiful reminder.
Can jump in. My name is Leah Vinay, and I live in Livermore, California. It's the Ohlone land. And the whole poem is really beautiful. The line that stood out was, and simmer in the essence of our soul. Like when we get quiet enough. I just love that. And basking in our own awareness, I love that. Because everything's so fast that no matter how much we learn, if we don't stay quiet long enough, how are we going to take it all in and process it and integrate it and grow if we don't sit still long enough? So that really makes sense. And it's beautiful. Thank you.
I think after talking piece, I'm going to go with the idea of Sue. Let's unlearn. And the idea of practice for learning, practice makes progress. And the same idea for unlearning. The more I practice unlearning, the more progress I see. And it says, move from knowing to feeling. So I think the invitation I'm getting here is when I come to a place, to a meeting, to a session, I bring what I know, but I also bring my heart. So the two of them present with me. I had a beautiful experience last week. We were delivering some webinars, and I did a webinar 5 times. The very first time, it was just the knowing. It was just here. I know I created the slides, I created the session, I had everything here from A to Z, but I got distracted by something that was happening outside. So there was no feeling, it was just a knowing. It's like when I memorize something and I forget it. But the last time it was balanced, the knowing and the feeling. So I was grounded and say, I love this. But as again, just practice, and practice makes progress. I pass the talking piece to Guadalupe and Annabelle. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm just coming back from work. So I am listening to you, and I am also grabbing a bite.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
See
Nice. Yeah, I've actually been to her kitchen right there. So wonderful food. So that's exciting.
Thank
Lupita,
you.
Mexico. Yeah, welcome. So for Lupita and Annabelle, we just read this poem that's in the chat, and we're just saying hello. So if there's anything you'd like to do to just check in and say hello to us, feel free.
Thank you very much, Mary.
And I'm just going to say, I'm in Costa Rica, and my office at home, it's a little dark here, but I have this big ring light in front of me, so I feel like I'm on stage a little bit. And every time I read or heard one of you read that line, which way is home? I just exhaled. I'm just exhaling. I'm just exhaling, and I'm feeling a little bit around that. The beauty of home, not the physical home, right? But the spiritual, essential home. And just that. That's why I'm here today. Big exhale. Annabelle, would you like to say hello? You don't have to, but if you'd like to, you're welcome to.
Hi, everybody. I'm just reading the poem and kind of catching up.
Yeah, well, you're welcome in whatever way you are. All right, we actually have a second check-in question. Iván, I don't know if you would mind popping that second question in the chat. And the question is really, how has holding space, or the idea of holding space, impacted you recently? This is the 3rd webinar. And we've just practiced our first opening circle, and we're going to talk explicitly about circle and holding space in community. But before we dive into that, is there anything you'd like to share about how you have been impacted by learning about holding space? Actually, I'm going to open with a story, my own story. I've told a few of you already this week. I had a really interesting experience of holding space for myself. A week ago, well, last Friday, I guess. I had a car accident, a very minimal, my back windshield was destroyed. I was at a hotel and I was backing into a parking space and there was a tree branch, a meter in, that was an unmarked tree branch to the space. So I just backed right into the branch and my back windshield shattered. And the owner of the hotel, it was a small hotel, maybe 10 rooms, came out and started yelling at me. He said, "Why didn't you park over there?" And I just looked at it, I was like, that question is just not useful right now. My brain was spinning like, what do I need to do? What do I need to think about? What just happened? You know, I was in that. And it was really, really hot. It was like incredibly hot and probably 90% humidity. Oh, it was miserable outside. And he continued. He's like, yeah, but usually, and it was going on. And I was like, that's just not useful right now. And I just kind of put my hand up and I was just really creating that boundary for myself. And I wasn't doing it to like, I had no anger towards him. I had no fix it energy or anything. I was just this real boundary for myself of, that's not important for me right now. And I really wanted to stay with myself about what was important for me. And I was sort of looking at my broken windshield and the glass and thinking, and then I hear him say, well, how can I help? I was like, oh, now that's a useful question. And I don't know. I have no idea. I'm going to go lie down in the air conditioning for about 15 minutes and then I'll let you know. It was such a great experience. I'll probably tell that story for the rest of my life. You'll hear it many times, I'm sure. But just being okay with myself and setting a boundary and saying, so I didn't get caught up in any of his story, any of his negativity, any of his rage. None of that touched me. I just was really like, nope, that's not for me. And yeah, so that holding space for myself was so powerful. Well, that's something I wanted to share. I'll put the talking piece back in the center.
I feel like holding space has been really helpful for me. Like last week I went to visit my mom and she was telling me about, can you all hear me? Yes, okay, good. She was telling me about some problems that one of my aunts is going through. And it was just like really tough stuff. And at one point I was like, okay, like it's important for me to listen to her and give her that space to kind of like share what, is concerning her about her sister, about my aunt. But at the same time, like, I know I can handle so much, kind of similar to what you were sharing, Mary. So I, just kind of gave her that space and listened. And I was trying to be aware of the parts in which I could gently encourage, parts in which I could empathize with what my mom was feeling. So it's been so relieving to be aware that I don't have to take it all in, that I don't have to process everything, that I can be there for people and do it in a way that is smart, but also caring, because I have so much mind space that I can give, but I want that space to be valuable and good for the people that are around me. So it's brought a lot of balance in my conversations with people and the way I've been relating to my close family, and also to identify which of my family members and friends are in that like liminal space, and how I can be like praying for them, encouraging them, just knowing that, just for them to know that I'm thinking of them, and that, you know, they don't need to, like, if they need any time or any space for them to share, then, you know, I'm there, but it's up to them, right? So that awareness has been really relieving and really empowering too. And I return the talking piece to the center.
I would like to take the talking piece. I think that in the last webinar we had, the discussion about tenderness, like, I wanted to explore a little bit more. And when I read a little bit more about it, I realized, I mean, the way it impacted me is that I realized that sometimes it was kind of difficult for me to put a boundary to people or to set limits. And maybe because I was really scared of the reaction of people. Even though I'm usually not very strong when I set my limits. Like I try to think about, you know, the impact I may have on others. But this part of tenderness was like kind of relieving, like Paola said, because I said, this is not me being like mean towards others. This is just taking care of me, like taking care of myself. So I think that it also brought me like more confidence and security and self-love. So it has been really, really useful to me. I'm feeling grateful for that.
Well, I already put in the chat in the WhatsApp group what happened with my doctor. It was my first time with him, and actually, he really needed somebody to listen to his frustration. So I became the healer that day. That was something amazing. So the other days, I have found many people that they are trying to stay stand. They're trying their best, but they are falling apart. Difficult times for some people who are around. I have a child with autism, and then, for example, there's the family. They had already an autistic child, and then their twins has been diagnosed with autism too. So they're gonna have 3 boys in the house with that. So with the condition. So we met in a conference, and I really needed to give my support, my attention. They were really, you know, in this moment of why me, if I already have one, things that you don't understand. Sometimes you don't find words to really lift a person who is falling apart in that way. But at least being there, like with a open heart, showing your kindness, showing support, giving probably a napkin to dry their tears was another moment that I lived this week. So this is very serious. This is a great responsibility. I know that sometimes we are just paying attention to our agendas, and we have our agendas, but there's a community really that it's articulated around us. because for example, if I would ignore a situation like that, probably I would have feel that I didn't do my part, right? And there, I just needed to be there in present in that moment where they were telling everybody in the conference, and then after that, when they were down, just with a small group, you see. So it has brought to me the reminder that all of us were connected. And let me tell you that I felt that day when I was with the doctor in this difficult situation. Well, I need everybody. I thought about Mary. I thought about everybody, all of you. So in the way of the other, everybody was there.
That really speaks to the power of the circle, Awilda. It really
Yeah.
does. It's and actually it speaks to the power of the circle beyond the circle in that sense, right? That we weren't actually.
I don't know, but I
something.
felt everybody there. Like I
Yeah.
didn't have that much experience in bringing out tenderness or whatever, but it was very powerful, really. And he
Yeah.
felt it. And he's so thankful that he has sent me several text messages.
That's sweet. That's sweet. Well, let's move forward today. There'll be some more times to share in just a minute. But I want to move forward with some of the content we wanted to share, and we're going to definitely have more circle time. But just to go over this, we were just now talking about how we've been impacted by holding space. And a quick review of just that we, in the webinar 1, we looked at the basics of liminal space, holding space, and hijacking space. And then in the second one, we talked about holding space for ourselves. And there's lots of different aspects. We focused on universal human needs and tenderness and authenticity. So it's sweet to hear a little bit about how maybe that's starting to come into play for you. And today it's about holding space in the community. And it's the circle way. And I'm curious, how many of you are aware, or have any of you either read books or studied anything about the circle way, or the way of counsel, or the way of the circle? Okay, so what any particular tradition or teacher for you in terms of circle?
I'm only very, very new to authors, Christine Baldwin.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I've dipped into her book a couple of times, but the resonation with being in circle and speaking in circle, being part of a circle. Yeah, so I'm very, very new to it. Yeah.
Oh, welcome. That's wonderful. Yeah, I started learning about circle actually when I was in graduate school 30 years ago. And there's a couple of different traditions. Well, people who have, it's a wisdom tradition. It's been in our world in many different ways. So, but I learned it originally from people who were studying it through something called the way of counsel. And the idea of holding counsel. The work that in the Center for Holding Space has been greatly influenced by the work of Christina Baldwin, who has a couple books about the circle. And there's a great website with lots of resources about circle, the circle way. And Heather actually studied with her for a while. She was one of Heather's mentors. So there's a lot of beautiful connections through that. And so this idea of recognizing this structure that is quite different perhaps than structures I grew up in. I'm not sure for you all, but the social structures, the communities, the communication style. I've never had circle growing up. I always had top down or bottom up conversations, but not the idea that we were equal and that we all had space and turns and time to just really listen and to fully listen without making plans ahead of time about what I was going to say. I mean, I was always listening because I knew that I was going to have to speak and figure out that I had to say something intelligent or something, so So when I started learning about circle way, I just like, just the same way I'm exhaling about finding the way home. This is my exhale night. I'm just like, yes, okay, we don't have to force our communication. We create a structure and a space where we can be and be with what comes. And it can be used in so many different ways. You know, it can be a dialogue, it can be a brainstorming, it can be a feedback process. And here we use it to explore ideas together about holding space and explore our own experiences. But I love this last sentence. It helps us discover who we really are to each other, as well as to the resources we can offer our conversations and tasks. So that's basically the circle way is what we wanted to share tonight. Iván, is there anything to add to this slide? Any comment or?
Well, not for now, Mary.
Okay. Just going to go over some of the slides that we picked a few slides to share about circle way, and then we'll get back into some conversation. But you know, the idea that we're equals coming together here, and we might have other hierarchical positions in other places, but right here we're very equal, and we're sitting down together to be together and to see what emerges. I love the verb emerge. You know, it's like we can't necessarily plan what we're going to say. We can't plan what other people or how we're going to react to other people, other than hopefully we'll be open and calm. But it's a very safe social place for us to make thoughtful contributions. And the idea, I really like the way Christina Baldwin puts this, is that there's a leader in every chair. Every single one of us here. I mean, Iván and I might be guiding this session tonight, but we're all leaders here in our chairs. And the idea is that we're all able to step into different roles and support the group. So I want to talk a little bit about the agreements, and then we'll look at, also want to share with you the agreements that we have in the Center for Holding Space. But these are the agreements that come from the circle way, sorry. Just take a minute to look at those. I'm curious, does anything jump out at any of you? Anything you particularly like or curious about, thinking about more of anything? Yeah, so.
This reminds me very much of how the contemplative group that I'm in works. Mm. And it's interesting that the word circle has emerged in the group's language, where we talk about here we are in circle, sharing our wisdom. And this group's been going for a little while. So yeah, it resonates. It's so strong, it resonates. And I think for me, the experience of being in this group that works in a very similar way is the respect that emerges for the other, the conversation without judgment. It doesn't devolve into, it's one of the only groups I've been into where conversation doesn't devolve into debate. That it is an acceptance of what the other has said, and it's a beautiful space to be in.
It sounds beautiful. It's nice that these ideas resonate with your experience. Iván has put in the chat a couple of PDFs that you can take from here that are downloaded from the Circle Way website. I just thought they're guidelines and they're sort of a pocket guide. They're nice resources to look over, like how do they define it? And again, it's one approach. There are other approaches as well and other interpretations, but it's one that has been useful. Other comments or thoughts or questions here?
Well, sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Thanks. I really liked what Sue said about how it's a space where conversations don't turn into debate. And many times, like, I feel that some conversations I have with certain people kind of feel like that. And you know, kind of like holding space for myself, I just decide to be like, okay, and just try to steer the direction in a different place, or because it's so exhausting to have to like defend my opinion, or to have to think about like, okay, what is this person really thinking about? And this is really refreshing, like the principles that are being shared here, the agreements, to listen to each other with curiosity and compassion. And that's something that, like, I love talking to Germán. Germán is my husband, because he's someone whom I can talk to with curiosity and compassion, and he'll listen to me with curiosity and compassion and withholding judgment. And so, like, I can talk to him for, you know, all day. So I think maybe we would be exhausted at the end of the day, but it's just so good to talk to him, because he's someone who listens like that. And I have seen people, like you mentioned, Sue, that just, it feels like a debate. And I often think like, can we just, you know, just talk like on the same level and engage? Like, you don't need to prove anything to me. I don't need to prove anything to you. We love each other. We appreciate each other. But yeah, and I feel like that's a challenge when like, you know, we're really blessed and really lucky to like be learning about this, right? But not everyone knows this, or not everyone is aware of this. And so to find that balance of listening with compassion and to hold space for ourselves and not to engage, and it can be tricky. But yeah, it's so good to like, and also just to be aware of those two spaces, where someone can listen to with curiosity and compassion, and the other one that feels like a debate, and it's so exhausting. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, a couple things. I think it's beautiful, the agreements, in the circles that I do. I always use curiosity and compassion and non-judgment. And like, I learned how to hold space from a few different circles that I was in. And it was so beautiful. I had never felt so safe before. It was all women, but it can be done with anybody. But the spaces I've been in have been all women, and it just really helped me feel safe enough to speak my truth. And I felt it was so beautiful that I had to hold space like that for people, you know. And the last place where I learned how to hold space was Women Speak. It's really for public speaking, but that's what that organization is for. But it was so much more what I was realizing, because I was one of the first, you know, facilitators to just like test it, and all the things that the founder said it would do. I found there was so much more, and I kept bringing all this stuff. I'm like, but you get this, and you get this, and you get this, and you know, and how powerful it was, like not even knowing fully how much stuff was going to come out of there. And I think that there's new practices and things that we discover constantly through it, because it feels like a divine intelligence when you bring people together that are in those agreements of non-judgment and loving and deep listening. And yeah, it's just beautiful. And so it's interesting that you actually put the words curiosity and compassion in your agreements. I love that, because that's part of mine, but I don't think I ever put that in there. So I love that. And I was also wondering about your the last part, that says that you have a bell or non, like, what is that for silence? I'm so curious.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. It's so sweet. I'm curious to hear more about Women Speak sometime outside of,
Okay, yeah,
but yeah, we have 2 core roles. So I'm hosting right now tonight, and Iván's being the guardian right now. So the guardian is the person who is on the lookout for, do we need a little pause? Sometimes things come up that are quite deep, and it's really nice to just have a pause. And so we use a bell as a way of inviting that pause. We also use the bell as a way of coming in to the session, or when we go to breakout rooms and come back, just ring the bell as a way of having some space together. Yeah.
okay, and yeah, Women Speak is available to all women. It's womenspeak.com, and it's open to women just practicing speaking what their messages are in a container. And it's global. There's circles all over the world. I'm no longer a facilitator for them. I did it for 5 years, but I still send people there all the time. I highly recommend it. And like I said, I use everything that I learned from there, and then I just add my own from everything else that I learned.
Sweet.
And it's just my own unique, I guess, signature, whatever you want to call it.
Beautiful. Sounds wonderful. We are going to just mention a few more things, and then we're going to go to breakout rooms. And these are the main practices that when we're in circle, and there's different traditions have different ways of speaking these, and you might actually call these guidelines as well, but we're just calling them practicing speaking with intention. And what I'm saying is what I need to be saying, and that is relevant to the moment, and listening with attention, full attention. So when I'm listening to someone, I'm not actually in my head planning what I'm going to say. Or I'll find sometimes, like when I hear somebody and I think, oh, I want to say something, and I sort of hold on to that. When I hold on to that, I find I stop sort of listening because I'm holding on to what I want to say. It's happened 3 times tonight already. Like, oh, I want to say this, and then I don't even remember what it was I wanted to say. But this idea of just really being in the present moment with my listening, with my attention to that person, and part of that listening with attention is just trusting that when it's my time to speak with intention, I will say what I need to say. So, and then the idea of tending to the well-being of the circle, like thinking about what's my impact on others, how much space and time am I taking, how much am I offering, what's the balance, and yeah, it's something to think about. And finally, this practice of valuing silence, like noticing the energy of silence and my own relationship to silence, whether there is silence. Do I want to start speaking immediately? Do I sit back and wait? Do I start getting anxious? Am I peaceful? Does the silence help me just listen into myself, like the poem? Yeah, it's just valuing silence and honoring its role in our time together. So those are some practices. Any comments or questions around the practices that you want to offer?
I feel like number 4 is so countercultural because we're so used to being filled with noise all the time. We feel uncomfortable with silence many times. I can reflect on my experience as a teacher and even right now I'm taking a course, and I've been thinking a lot about that. Like, it just feels like, we're constantly like listening to the teacher, or I'm listening to my classmates. And sometimes I wish like there was like a pause to kind of like take it all in. But I also think about my own teaching and just like how I can feel responsible to like fill the space with the sound of my voice. because I feel like that's my responsibility. So yeah, it's so countercultural, and it's so good to be aware of the importance of silence, and it just how good it can feel. Like once you start getting, at first it might feel kind of awkward because it's countercultural, especially I feel like, I mean, I can speak from my experience being in Guatemala. Like we're not used to being very quiet. We can be a little loud sometimes and friendly and chatty, and sometimes silence is like, what? No, like you're having a conversation with your family. Like, what do you mean silence? We all have to be sharing something. So yeah, just being aware of how countercultural it can be, but also being aware that it's possible and we can bring that contribution to our relationships as well.
Oh, I love what you just said. I feel like I want to add to that, the silence, because with speaking, it's like it can really make something land that you're trying to say that's really powerful when you allow silence. Because sometimes, when people don't leave any space, like you were saying, you can't take it all in. But when you leave space, it gives people time for it to like land in their body, and they can feel it in their body and actually take it in, if that makes sense. And it's uncomfortable, especially at first, but once you do it, it feels really good, like it's a tool. And it takes you, like sometimes if you're just speaking and you start to go in your head, it takes you right back to your heart. The silence is that pause. So it's like such a gem.
I would like to share something that happened to me when Paola mentioned about her teaching practice. I was thinking about a friend I have. I started teaching her like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I guess. And there was a moment where we were doing a reflection activity and she asked me how, what I thought about her learning. And I remember I said some specific things and that I saw progress in her. And she said, well, I am not seeing this progress, she said. And I said, well, I can see it. And I remember that she said something like, maybe I am just too focused in doing things when I am in class and doing them perfectly. And I'm just not paying attention to what I'm actually doing, like my progress. So I said that for me, it was very important to be present to her and to be present to her learning and to also respect her process, right? And I remember that she created this video where she said, I'm going to be more gentle with myself and actually like paying attention to everything I'm doing, to learn. So I think that listening with attention may empower others as well. Maybe empowering, because sometimes we may be listening with attention to the external part, but maybe not to ourselves, right? So thank you for this.
Thank you all. We want to move forward now to go into some breakout rooms so we can have some time for some smaller conversations. And we're going to invite you for these questions. You don't have to talk about them. But if one of them makes sense for you and that's you'd like to talk about it, great. The purpose of Circle really is to speak what's most alive for you. What do you want to share? So what's on your mind and heart? What thoughts or questions you have about being in Circle or about leading a circle? And do you have any stories of your own related to this holding space and community that you'd like to share? Anything about being in circle that you'd like to share? So we're going to send you off in, I think there's 3 breakout rooms with 3 people in each room. And we hope you enjoy it. And we'll go for, actually, I'm thinking about 15 minutes, and then we'll come back and harvest. And if it's okay for you all, I think Iván and I might pop in just to be with you for a little while. But if we pop in there and you're like, don't stay, we won't stay. It's okay. We also like to participate. So just to be with you all. So.
All right, we're ready. We'll pick our rooms. Enjoy the conversation.
Oh.
Maybe I can join that group, Mary.
Sounds good. Welcome back to our bigger circle. We have a few minutes. Just curious if there's anything you'd like to share into the big circle after our smaller groups. Anything you'd like to, questions, comments, thing about something that's come up for you. I'll put the talking piece in the center.
I feel so happy to be in this circle. I want to learn how to lead a circle too. Thank you, Mary.
I'd like to share a story of something that happened to me in the afternoon and how beautiful. While I was listening with intention, I went to a parents' meeting, 400 parents in one auditorium. And then the principal of the school was asking for what they need, financial support. And the whole meeting was about that. And then so he was like, raise your hand if you're willing to contribute. We cannot require parents to contribute, but if you're alive, if you're willing to, and then people started like, yeah, I can contribute with $5 a week or $10 a month, or they were like, and then it was like who can give more, like $20, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. It's you're asking for what you need, but what I can give, right? What I can offer. So and then I noticed people started chatting and talking to each other and not paying attention to what they were asking for. So I raised my hand and I asked for a mic and I said, it's great. It's a great invitation to contribute. You're asking for what you need. But I like to also offer what I can contribute, maybe not cash. What other options do we have? Maybe, I don't know, time, something we can bring, because they say we don't have toilet paper, we don't have food, we don't have X and Y. I say, yeah, I can bring a soap, I can bring what other options, so I can offer what I can give. And I was thinking about the circle ways. I was like, yes, this is the principle. so I can bring it with me everywhere I go.
I feel like just piggybacking off what Iván shared, it's and I think like I also mentioned how countercultural these agreements can be. Like it requires when like trying to hold space in community, as we were sharing with Jovi and Iván in our group, we were talking about how sometimes like a buy-in from the people around us or the people that we work with is necessary, like some sort of training or sharing ideas. Because Jovi shared, for example, how sometimes people at work don't get it. Like you start showing up in a different way and they might be skeptical about it. And so, yeah, because it can be so countercultural, it might require a little bit of like, maybe a little bit of left brain and say like, hey, like, these are some of the things that I want to practice, and being honest about what we're trying to do. But also like, I really love what Jovi is doing at her workplace too, because she's sharing principles of like nonviolent communication and like trying to integrate that in the way she manages people. And so like that definitely sets the stage for holding space in community. And so I think she has a great example of how like she's been able to get buy-in from the people that are working around her, and with her leadership. So that's what we talked about in our group.
I think I'm going to speak into the silence. I'd like to share a few things before we just do a little closing checkout. Unless there's somebody else that has anything that they'd really like to offer at this point. Okay. So I want to share. Let's see. We have our breakout rooms. We have a lot more opportunity. This is our little welcome to the Center for Holding Space. There's a lot of other things if you're interested that you can also do if you'd like to. So we have the online foundations course. Oh, it's actually module 3. If you want to learn more about holding space in community. But the foundations course starts in October. And Iván and I are facilitators on that course. So we're looking forward to being with people there. It's fun. It's one of my favorite days of the week is my holding space day. Right now, there's also this online course that Heather's running, a full-bodied course, a full-bodied life. And it's a course and a community. And actually, I don't know if I have a slide for each of these. I think I did. No, actually, let's go back to this list. And you can join that anytime and get the lessons and join in the calls if you'd like. The calls are not being recorded, so it's not the kind of thing that you get those recordings. So if you show up to the call, you're there, and if you're not, then you're not, which is okay. Next year, every year, she's also leading a Know Yourself, Free Yourself is really about holding space for yourself, but it's a really beautiful, beautiful course. If you feel like coming to Costa Rica, we're having 2 retreats here next year. We're going to have one on tenderness and holding space for yourself, and one on sort of the basics, the foundations of holding space. There's a free resource book, The House That Tenderness Built, that Iván can put the link in the chat. I think, Iván, we were also going to share he's going to share some links and some other documents and things that could be of use. Heather has a new book coming out soon, and actually probably I think in January, about tenderness, which is really beautiful and holding space for oneself. And her first book, The Art of Holding Space, if you haven't read it. She also has a blog. There's lots of wonderful, beautiful places. So this is a little information about the Foundations program. There's 5 modules. And what Iván and I are doing here is a series of webinars, one webinar about sort of each topic. So we're halfway through here in community. Leah, I will be sending you an email, so just so you know. And we've got 2 more calls coming up, holding space and complexity, and then holding space one-on-one. The complexity is going to be in September, and the one-on-one I think is going to be in early October. Today was just a little dive into holding space in the circle. There's all these other interesting questions that we go into in the actually the Foundations program. Just different aspects of learning to hold the circle. That's Heather's course. I talked about that. I did have a slide for each of these. There you go. Know Yourself for Yourself is a really beautiful course where she interviews a lot of people, and then there's 12 lessons of it. It's a really beautiful course. This is the retreat space in Costa Rica that we had a retreat last year. So it's really beautiful. I'm looking forward to it again next year. I think Iván put the link to her book. New book coming up. You can already find it on Amazon. And her book is also there on Amazon and also in a few other places. So yeah, that's our little plug for other learning opportunities. I would like to have a closing little circle here of just what's something you're taking from tonight, or how are you now as we're wrapping up these 90 minutes together, this circle on circle. I just want to invite any feelings, comments, thoughts. Please feel free to pick up the talking.
That we have a circle. Oh, wow. And it's a great responsibility, really. All these, sometimes you don't know if we are going to be able to sustain all this knowledge. But I was talking with my team, in the breakout room, that it's about the frequency. I mean, we are vibrating in another frequency, and we are like seeing the things outside. Like, I can hold space for myself, and I can hold space for all the people. So it's very interesting. It's like being in the circle and being out of the circle. We are getting out of matrix with this knowledge. Eventually matrix don't like really people who are awakening. So I see it very transformative. I have practiced circle space in the foundation for parents who are recently diagnosed, and when we create this safe space, it's wonderful because people feel like they can talk freely, but probably we bring topics, and what you're proposing is more like to be there in a circle, so it's something that we could explore. Thank you very much, Mary, for all this knowledge.
I'm taking what Paola shared earlier, the practice with Herman, listening to each other with curiosity and compassion. It's a great intention with couples. Thank you, Paola.
Taking the exhale today.
taking softness and respect and infusing my path ahead with those beautiful qualities.
I'm taking the poem, being quiet enough for long enough, like the day can be filled, maybe not with noise many times, but just things to do, and just finding that space to be quiet enough for long enough. And speaking of the 4 agreements, just valuing silence.
Walking away feeling very hopeful and filled up, to know that I can enter a room with strangers and be filled with love. It's very hopeful, inspiring. Makes me want to spread it.
I have been working with listening with curiosity and listening to understand. I have been working with listening to understand instead of or replying. So that's what I have been working with, and I will continue. This is a reminder that I should continue with that. Thank you.
I'm taking away the invitation to continue to unlearn, so that the learning can continue.
Anybody else would like to say anything before we call it a night?
I would like to share that sometimes I fill my day with a lot of things to do, and I am always doing and doing and doing. And something that I did last weekend, I delivered a training the whole Saturday, morning and afternoon, and I had to stay 3 hours from my house. So I stayed at a hotel, and it had a swimming pool. And in the morning, I was like, I can go early and arrive home, but I wanted that quiet. So I got into the swimming pool and I started doing like body scan. I would let my hands float and like feeling the fingers and the water. And it was, I had never done it. And first I was very self-conscious because there were some people by the restaurant. But then I was like, I'm not looking at them, and I just closed my eyes and I started like feeling the sun on my face, and just having that quiet, that moment just for me, it was very nice. And I now understand a little bit more about self-care, because when we give, we also have to give to ourselves. And I sometimes don't take that time for me. And that day I was like, this is my time, this is my moment. And it was just a very nice moment to just feel my body, like, okay, my knee, my ankles, like, how am I feeling? And it was very nice to take that moment of quiet, of silence, and just being there.
Sounds divine. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight or this morning, wherever you are. Evening, we say morning and evening together. Good evening. Our next webinar is September 3rd, which I think is actually a Sunday at 11 a.m. Costa Rica time. Yeah, so that's the next one. And then the last webinar will actually be at the same 6 p.m. time. They asked us to vary it. So we'll send you some reminders and thank you emails and things like that. So I will ring the bell one more time as an invitation to prepare ourselves to leave today. Thank you so much. Best wishes for some sweet holding space, maybe some painful holding space too. Who knows? Maybe we need that too. But some sweetness. Yeah. I look forward to seeing you all in September.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye bye, everyone.